Okay. Hello, my good friends. This is Chaos Angel here, also known as Lord of Omni, and we are back at it again with another video after such a very long time of just flip-flopping around and whatnot, carrying on and so on and so forth. So I apologize for the fact that I have been taking quite a long time in trying to even get back to this topic as far as the various things that have been going on with Final Fantasy XIV, as far as the job changes, the stuff that happened on the live letter, the stuff that was going on with the launch trailer, and so on and so forth, and just pretty much a lot of hoopla that's been flying here and there, and so on and so forth. So it's like, I thought that in the long run, I will just go ahead and speak my general thoughts on everything in a sort of 4-part video where I'm sort of doing, talking about certain things, as far as this video being a job changes video, and then the next video will be sort of like me working on making my actual Vieira, because, well, one of the other reasons as to why and what has been taking so long for me to even do anything at the moment was mainly due to the fact that I finally got a new computer. Literally at the very beginning of this month, it was actually much earlier than that, surprisingly, I finally got my very own brand new computer, which, thank God, I am loving the very feeling of this computer. I love just how smooth it is. I love how it transitions into the next thing, and I just love how fast it renders. So many times it's just been it's been a chore, essentially, when it comes down to having to throw out all of these long videos and so on and so forth, with them being 20 minutes long or 30 minutes long. It doesn't even matter. In the hour-long ones, oof, when it came to my old computer, it would just be like practically a day would go by before I would even be able to upload it. But it's just now, oh, it's just so, it's so good. It is just so good. I keep on finding myself like a 20-minute video would take literally 20 minutes in order to render, and it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Not only that, we also have the hour-long videos. They would literally take an hour, if not that, maybe 2 hours at best. It's just such a nice feeling actually being able to render these videos at a decent time to where I can upload them at a relatively good time when I react to them, which is one of the reasons why, due to the E3 nonsense, with so many freaking things just being thrown at me that I needed to react to here and there in a rush, I was able to freaking bring them out the second I was pretty much done with them when it came to the editing, and it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was amazing. 25 minutes at the minimum, at the very least, and so on and so forth, all that good stuff. So another thing is just like, I get how it has been taking me so long just to freaking get my videos out for you guys, and I apologize. There have been a lot of stuff going on with job, work, getting this nice computer all set up for streaming and so on and so forth, and just overall setup for my OBS software, which I'm still trying to freaking work on real quick. But not only that, just overall feeling as far as like my general health. I was actually feeling quite sick over the time after E3 was finished, so it's like I can't really get down to the ladder of like recording or even doing anything with my videos at the time that I was trying to get done. Plus, not to mention, there was the fact that I was also doing scripting, which is the first ever thing that I've ever done for any of my videos. I usually just ad-lib the whole thing. I literally just freaking roll with it, roll with the punches, and just speak my own piece. So it's like, yeah, first time ever doing that. not really all that good at it. I am a serious procrastinator. I'm just gonna point that out. When it goes down to just like generally typing the first few lines of paragraphs and so on and so forth, my interest just freaking goes away. And I generally just want to like bring out the feeling of what I have to say. And though I will fumble with some of my words here and there, it's just something that I just find myself more so wanting to do over scripting, because it's I guess it's kind of where the chore aspect of making a video comes from. It really is. It's not something that I'm really all that fond of, but I understand how it is something that you would do in order to show professionalism and so on and so forth. Well, I just want to let you know that I am a professional in what I do in my own way. So that's neither here nor there. Other than that, so yes, we are at it. We are only a week away, literally a week away from the actual release of Shadowbringers, and I have so much shit that I have to actually talk to you guys about. And at the very least, it's finally here. At the very least, it's better late than never. So let's go ahead and get into the shit. We're going to be starting with part 1 of the chaos discussion on Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, starting with the job actions. And so now that we have the job actions all out and about, with various tooltips being flown here and there from freaking Mr. Happy, Lurizor, Very Merry Ms. Tech, Work to Game, Drac from Ness, freaking Ethis. So many people from the actual Final Fantasy community has been literally doing their utmost in bringing out the information. Mione doing an awesome job trying to bring out information for everyone to actually see, so on and so forth. It's awesome. It's awesome. And I'm glad to know that everyone in the Final Fantasy community is, well, somewhat a good chunk of the Final Fantasy community is enjoying the actual hype of the Shadowbringers hype train just as much as I am. So in terms of getting into it, I'm not really going to be talking too much about potencies here. I'm not really going to be going down the line talking about all of the changes and actions. I'm just going to be talking about my general thoughts of the changes that I've seen and what I like as far as some of the jobs that I plan on playing and so on and so forth. And I'm just going to be going in order by actual role and then of course job. So in the long run, let's go ahead and get into this shit, guys. Let's go. And so, with that, we have, starting with the tank role. The tanks have actually gone through so much changes, I'm just going to point out right now. And I absolutely love it, honestly. One of the things that I love so much about the tanks is the fact that they've streamlined the job so much. They really have streamlined the job so much. And actually, before I even get into it, some of the actual overall changes that I want to get into before the actual tank jobs that I love is that they have implemented a charge system. They have made it to where a good majority of the jobs now have either a single target of the AoE variation of their skill, or pretty much vice versa. And that's kind of crazy for just like how versatile these jobs are in this expansion. I just really couldn't freaking wrap my head around it. Like, is this AoE central in this expansion? It's not just freaking Dark Knight central, it's freaking AoE central up in this piece. And not to mention, there are a lot of quality of life changes to many of these jobs. Granted, not many that some may actually enjoy, but in the long run, we still have only a week until the time that we actually get to play the game. And since the time that we even freaking got like all of the information that we could freaking see, and we obtained it, and so on and so forth, read about it, research, theory craft, and so on and so forth. There may have been actual changes to these abilities, to these traits, to these skills, to these spells, weapon skills, what have you, all of that. So even though I will be pointing out some of these things, and as I said before, the reason why I'm not going to be like talking about much of the potencies is because they are most likely subject to change, and as this is probably going to be implemented a little bit better than Stormblood, when, well, they said that they were going to be implementing change. It didn't happen though. I didn't really see much change in tooltips when it came to the actual skills, so it's just like hopefully we do a little bit better this time, guys. But yes, that's about it that I actually have to say on the overall changes of each the overall changes of all the jobs all around. So it's just like certain abilities will be having a charge action to where you will be able to use that skill or that cooldown multiple times of about 2 to 3, which is just so it's just so nice. It's just so nice, guys. It's just so nice, really. But not only that, the majority of the changes that have been implemented here, streamlined or made even more complex, whichever. One of the things that I really love that Yoshi P made very clear was the fact that job effectiveness, the actual job effectiveness of a job, is due to player skill. It is caused by player skill. So yes, I'm going to be making sure to freaking place that in this video just to let you guys know that this in and of itself is 100% facts. It is facts right here. It's not literally just Yoshi P saying this. It is literally all of just the whole entire freaking Final Fantasy community that can agree on just the player skill showing the effectiveness of a job. You never really know what in the world you might find out whenever you're going into an instance. You might find something out that you never even freaking seen that someone else was able to figure out and actually put inside your arsenal. So that's one thing that I actually love. And so now, going back to the tanks. Speaking of streamline, tanks have gone through quite a bit of an overhaul to where their stances as far as their DPS stance have been removed, and now their aggro stance, the actual tank stance, has been made the actual aggro generation or the enemy generation, solely built in that stance to where you no longer even have an issue of even like having your aggro being pulled off of you. So that is one change in and of itself that's already amazing, and I can't even wrap my head around just how like mad some people may be about that or disappointed. It's whichever. As far as I'm concerned, this is an acceptable change to where it makes it easier for those who are interested in the actual tank job to be able to learn and smoothly get into the tank feeling throughout the entirety of the Final Fantasy game. Not only that, but also just making the playthrough at the very beginning of Final Fantasy much easier, because let me tell you, back in the day when I was playing tanks, when it was just like 2.1, so on and so forth, yeah, it was rough. It was rough. It was quite the day. It was quite the day, I'll let you know right now. But as I was saying before, tanks on the DPS stances have actually been removed. No longer will your DPS as well as your HP bonus be used within your actual tank stance, as it will actually be placed into a trait. Excluding the DPS part, your DPS will no longer be lowered anymore. Your HP bonus instead is actually just placed within the trait. So now you no longer even have to worry about the fact of your HP being lowered due to your tank stance not having it anymore. It's actually part of a new trait called the Tank Mastery, which is a universal trait earned at level 1. And that is your... Actually, now that I think about it, wait a second. No. Correction. The Tank Mastery is more so your 20% reduced damage taken stance. Forgive me, it's not the HP bonus. That's been completely removed. So it's like the DPS and the HP bonus thing, yeah, no, that's gone bye-bye. That's now part of literally your actual skills, your abilities within your kit. So everything is now solely dependent on the actual jobs and not just the actual stances, which is it's an acceptable change in the long run. As far as I'm concerned, I can definitely get down to this. It's not really going to change much to me in the long run, as much as it's going to change for a good chunk of the veterans. Yeah, I'm getting the strange feeling that it's like the veterans are not exactly all that fond of it, but for me, in terms of being a casual player who at times will be doing various content as far as the extremes, and I literally just recently picked up Savage, where I was doing the 05 and 06 Savage. Unfortunately was not able to clear 07 and haven't really been getting into it ever since, because it's just like I don't really have a dedicated party. I would like to have a dedicated party because I'm not fond of pugs. Thank you very much. So yeah, that's my shtick. Other than that, not getting too not straying away from the actual video in and of itself, getting back to it, role actions have actually been reduced and are not as prominent anymore, but it's just like they're now actually used or placed within your toolkit, if I remember correctly. And obviously a good chunk of them, as far as the unnecessary ones, have been removed. Though I wouldn't exactly say that for the tanks, these are unnecessary. Somewhat. So it's like we have convalescence, anticipation, as well as awareness and ultimatum removed from the tanking roles role actions. And as much as I would like to say that some of them I actually would have liked them to be consolidated into a different fashion, I guess this is fine. This is fine in the long run, because we're able to keep our Rampart, our Low Blow, our Provoke, our Interject, our Reprisal, our Shirk is still available in the game, but they also added in the DPS role actions arm's length, making it pretty much easy for you to now no longer be pushed back whatsoever. And I do believe that also changes some of the tanks' ability, like for instance Paladin Tempered Will and Warriors Home Game. So that's actually something that we're going to be getting into at some point. But not only that, Provoke as well as Interject have gone through some certain changes, where Provoke is now 60 seconds on its cooldown instead of 40 seconds, making it even easier for you to actually make sure that you're on keeping your aggro up. But it's like, you really shouldn't be having a problem unless you don't have your tank stance on right now, you know? But one actual great change about Provoke is the fact that now Provoke actually gains enmity on top of putting you at the top of the aggro list. And you get it earlier as just one level, where you get at level 15 and instead of level 16. So that is a great change. I actually enjoyed that. That's amazing. That is definitely going to make things a lot easier. You'll be able to start your pulls with Provoke, which I don't really know why in the world people would even do that right now. It's kind of strange. Just use your freaking range attack and just get her done, son. Interject has actually been moved to level 18 from level 40. And instead of actually silencing them, they actually interact the target's action, which is interesting. I don't know whether if that's a tooltip error, or it's just because of the fact that they actually made the silencing of the bosses, or pretty much the enemies' actions, more apparent to where you can silence them, because now the tanks as well as the ranged physical DPS are now the more focused jobs with the silence ability, where it's going to make things a little bit more viable for you to silence enemies or just interrupt their actions, because of the change that they implemented to the bars for the enemy's health. And then of course arm's length has actually gone through a significant nerf, which saddens me, because the recast timer has been increased back to freaking 120 seconds from 60 seconds. So it's just like, why in the world did that have to happen? It is very sad. I know that the tanks now have their arm's length as well as the range, but we'll be getting to that soon enough. But did we really have to increase the time of it though? Did we? Really? Oh well. Other than that, it's actually unlocked at level 32, which is pretty much the usual level from the actual DPS roll action. So that's not too shabby in and of itself. You're not really going to be needing it in the long run, so it's just like, that's fine. And now that we're done with the actual tanking role, we're going to be going ahead and getting into the individual jobs of the tanks, starting with the Paladin. And now we begin with the Paladin. The Paladin has gone through so many changes so many times. Oh man, I swear I remember the times back in vanilla Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn. The Paladins, they grew up, they matured so much. It's just, I'm so happy, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. But yes, they have gone through significant amount of changes with just how many freaking DPS abilities that they have in their toolkit now. It's just, it's madness. Not only that, so many freaking abilities have actually been moved from here and there, and you're going to be seeing that a lot with tanks as well as some other jobs as far as the DPS are concerned, because ooh, a good chunk of them have been moved. But first, let's speak on the one thing in here, in the elephant in the room, is the fact that Flash has now been removed from the actual Paladin's kit. Finally, it's been so long as I have been wanting that move to just disappear, and it actually reminds me of someone's comment back in my actual incoming live letter for the actual job action changes, where it's just like they shouldn't remove Flash, and you made no sense. So I'm just gonna point that out right now. Called it. Thank you. But no, I didn't actually call it. It's more so like I asked for it and they delivered. But not only that, they delivered on so many fronts that I just can't even freaking believe how much that I've wanted was made a reality. Like, it's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. But getting back into it, one thing about the jobs as far as the tanks is that they no longer have aggro combos now. They now mostly use their DPS combo, which is actually pretty strange, because it's like we have the aggro combo because of, well, we have our tank stance still. But I guess it makes sense in the fact that we're mostly just doing DPS because we still keep our DPS. But it's just like, just because of the fact that they no longer generate enmity with the aggro combo doesn't mean like they had to remove the aggro combo, because it's like there are certain skills that I love from some of these tank jobs that I wanted, and it's just like, why in the world did you have to remove the animations? They were actually pretty badass, don't you know? But you still kept Rage of Alone. Why? Why did you keep Rage of Alone? But yet you removed all of the other skills. Why you do this? Anyway, not only did they remove that, but they also removed Sword Oath from Paladin's actual kit, as well as Shield Swipe, Savage Blade, Bulwark, Tempered Will, as I was saying before, and not only that, but also Flash again. Sword Oath, however, has, well, it's been consolidated into something else. It still exists, but it's just not a weapon skill anymore, which is interesting. It's something that's used in order to activate another attack, which we'll get into at sooner or later. But getting back into it, one of my things about the job is just how freaking versatile it is now. So many of its abilities, as far as like Riot Blade, Total Eclipse, freaking their actual tank stance, which for all other tanks have been moved to level 10. Shield Oath has actually been renamed to Iron Will, which is interesting, and it's now unlocked at level 10, as I was saying before. Certain skills like Shield Bash have been moved to an earlier level. Speaking of which, like Total Eclipse, the reason why they removed Flash is because they literally did both. Not just one, but they did both of what I asked for. They removed Flash and replaced it with Total Eclipse. And now freaking unlocks at level 6. Like, do you not even understand exactly how amazing it is that we now have an ability at a lower level that is an AoE where we can deal damage instead of freaking blinding people to death. I am so happy that now the Paladin can go out into the fray at early levels for all of those new those new gladiators going out, dealing some actual damage and some dungeon runs. It's an amazing feeling, guys. It's an amazing feeling. But looking back at it, Riot Blade actually got moved to an earlier level from 10 to 4, which makes sense because Shield Oath now, Iron Will more so replaces that into the actual level 10 slot, so that makes sense. And then of course there's the fact that some of the abilities have actually been removed as far as Savage Blade, so it's like that makes sense as well in the long run. Continuing on, a great majority of the skills have gotten damage increases, but as I said before, I'm not really going to be getting into them because like there's no point. But I will get into some of them because some of them are just freaking ridiculous. I'm just gonna say this. A lot of them are ridiculous and I have to point them out. Like, for instance, some of the new abilities, good God, why in the world is this Paladin doing so much damage? He's looking pretty threatening right now, I'm just gonna say. But continuing on, certain skills that have also been moved, like Spirits Within from level 45 to level 30 is an amazing thing, and then like it now actually restores MP. I do believe that's under a trait, or it's actually just like something that restores MP now regardless. But I do believe it's actually back behind a trait. Some of these usual changes you don't really get until later levels at around the level 70 to 80. So there's that. But not only that, one of the things that's really interesting here is the fact that now that the actual tanking stance has been relegated and moved to an earlier level, it makes things interesting for how you start things at level 30 when you actually get your job. So we actually get Sheltron at an earlier level as well from level 52. We no longer get that ability at that level anymore. It's now a part of our kit when we first get the job, and I actually find that to be very amazing. That is actually something that makes sense to me because I feel like Sheltron is an ability that should like be a staple to that of the Paladin, literally being one of the things that identifies Paladin as it being literally a mitigation tank. Even though all the tanks are mitigation, it's just that some of them are more unique in some general areas. But it's like for the Paladin, Sheltron is the one thing that's essentially like the cover for the Paladin. It's literally just for them that makes it easier for them to mitigate damage. It's the one focal point of their abilities that takes damage and mitigates it. And for this job, it's perfect for an actual skill that identifies it, just like how many of the other skills for the other jobs identify it, like how Dark Arts was Dark Knight's identity, which was a very bad identity, and I'm glad that we're not really going to be having that identity anymore, but I will be getting to that soon enough, and we'll be getting to that soon enough, but not right now. One thing that's awesome about this change on top of that is the fact that it no longer just blocks the next attack anymore. It now blocks all incoming attacks for 6 seconds. My guys, like, you have no idea how amazing that is. The only problem though is that we still built up the gauge by auto attacks. Yeah, that still hasn't changed. Yeah. Nothing I can really say about that one though. To continue on, some things have actually been lowered as far as like the Sentinel's damage taken percentage has been lowered. Cover has been kind of nerfed, sadly, to where it now is under the actual oath gauge, which I find to be fine, but at the same time it's just like ouch, because it now costs a gauge in order for you to activate, whereas it was nice for you to freely just use it under a cooldown. But in the long run, it does make sense for them to add that into the gauge, because I feel like Cover as well as Sheltron is pretty much like they are similar in aspects to where one is more focused on you while the other is focused onto someone else. So it's like they're kind of like staple abilities between each other in terms of defensive cooldowns. So it definitely makes sense for them to both be under the oath gauge, making it more viable, not exactly more viable, but more choice worthy on exactly what in the world you're going to be using. Like if I plan on using cover in order to cover the main tank and take the brunt of the actual damage, because now you actually take all of the damage instead of just 80% of the damage, which is pretty nice, honestly. However, you better make sure that you take a cooldown, because you're going to be taking that damage now. I'm just going to let you know. And then, of course, again, potency increases all over around, as well as dot potencies on like freaking Circle of Scorn and Goring Blade. Freaking Rage of Alone got one. Royal Authority got one. And speaking of Royal Authority now actually unlocks at level 60, where Rage of Alone becomes Royal Authority, similar to like how certain spells would become the next tier of a spell. So it's like that's how they generally made it to where the tank's ability as far as the DPS skill for the Paladin would come into play later on and get stronger at a certain level. So it's like that's awesome. And the potency on Royal Authority has actually been increased from freaking 360 to 550. Like, what the hell is this number? Now, sure enough, I understand how like the damage values have now significantly increased due to the level cap being raised, the difficulty of bosses, and so on and so forth, the HP pools. But it's just like, what the heck is with this number on a tank? Like, holy crap. Guys, considering the fact that we no longer freaking like have lower damage on our tank stance, this is actually pretty ridiculous. It really is. And I can't wait to see you exactly what in the world this is the tiers are going to be having in store for us when it comes to just like dishing out damage and so on and so forth. Those freaking parts are going to be really interesting. But one thing about the Royal Authority is that it now actually grants the stacks of Sword Oath, which will be able to activate a certain skill later on at around level 70, 72 if I remember correctly, or 74, whichever. I will be getting into that in a second. But one thing that we need to speak on in terms of nerfs is the fact that they nerf freaking Holy Spirit again and lowered its freaking potency. My lord, why the hell do you keep on doing this to this skill? It's a good thing though that you actually gave it an AoE variant, which I was saying before, because Paladin now has a new AoE skill for pretty much both melee and spell, where not only does Holy Spirit have an AoE ability, but Total Eclipse actually has a follow-up AoE ability called Prominence that unlocks at level 40. And I'm just like, so you're telling me that Paladin can now dish so much damage in AoE situations now? This is the life that we live, guys. This is the generation that we're in right now, to where the Paladin can actually deal AoE damage. I don't know how to register that. I really don't know how to register that. Like, that is just absolutely amazing. I'm just going to point that out right now. Continuing on, Holy Spirit in and of itself has an AoE ability called Holy Circle, a spell that unlocks at level 72. And yeah, that does some potent damage. But it's like, we haven't even gotten to the coup de grace of the Paladin's kit when it comes to that. Because before we even get into that, let's talk about like another skill, Requiescat, that also got a potency increase. But not only that, its attack magic as well as its healing magic potency increase has been increased to freaking 20% to 50%. Now, I want you to keep that because that's insane. I don't know whether or not if that's due to a trait, but if it is, that's fine. But if it's overall, that's insane still. But not only that, it now insta-casts spells. So it's like your Clemency, your Holy Spirit, your Holy Circle, and as well as your new skill will now be insta-cast. So those who are not really all that fond of slide casting when it comes to the Paladin, you no longer have to worry about that anymore. I hope they are happy about that, because never ask for Yoshi P for anything ever again. I'm just kidding. Continuing on to finish off with the Paladin, we finally also have gotten our Paladin to the greatest spot of all time, because one of the other things I've asked for the Paladin in my previous videos is that I wanted it to have a gap closer, and Intervene has now, oh god, Paladin finally got its gap closer. It's here, guys, and we get it at level 74, unfortunately, but hey, at least we got it. Intervene is now called our gap closer and is actually a part of the charge system, to where you will be able to use it 2 times under 2 charges. And I really gotta say, I like the touch of that, with it being 30 seconds in terms of its cooldown. We're all good here. Building off from the actual talk with the sword oath stacks, Atonement is a new weapon skill that we earn at level 76 that deals an extra damage of 550, so it's just like, guys, do you understand exactly how much like damage the Paladin is gonna be able to do nowadays in this expansion? I mean, sure enough, it's just like, it may not be as great as like the Warrior maybe, but they're looking pretty threatening right now. They're looking pretty threatening right now, especially considering how their final ability, Confiteor, a spell that you unlock at level 80, deals a damage, an AoE damage, mind you, of 800 with no fall off. Like, can you just like think of that real quick? We have multiple AoE skills that we can spam, and spell AoE spells that we can spam, with Requiescat increasing the like potency of those spells. And then you have Confiteor, an AoE that deals a damage of 800 with absolutely no fall off, and is used under Requiescat. That's the only way that you can even use it. So it's just like, it deals that extra damage on top of the damage that you're already using. So it's just like, Paladin is freaking insane, and it needs to calm the fuck down. But my overall opinions on it is that I just can't wait to actually test out this job once I level it up to level 80. Like, this job is sounding very fun. It is sounding very fun, and I want to play it. But now we must look at the next job, which is the Warrior. And here we have the Warrior, which I am kind of feeling iffy about. Forgive me, I don't really play much of Warrior as much as some people out there in the community. I know my friend Phoenix is definitely a fan of it. He plays it a lot. But I'm mostly the Paladin Dark Knight person, and I will soon be the Paladin Dark Knight and Gunbreaker person. But it's like the Warrior, I just can't get myself to like really play it all too much. In terms of like demand is my issue with you needing to execute your actual abilities in a certain way in order to like maximize and optimize the job. So it's like the demand on that is I'm not really too fond of. It's not really my cup of tea. I'm not really interested in like trying to think while I deal damage. Thank you. That's one of my issues. I don't want to think while I do damage. I want to feel the flow, and sure enough, you'll feel the flow once you like get to it at a certain point. But it's like I really don't want to take the time to do that. I really don't feel like it. But I do know much of the actual job because, well, I very well damn studied it. So it's like I need to be able to understand the job. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know whether or not if like the Warrior is underwhelming to most, but it's like, to me, in the long run, it does what it's supposed to do, but it has definitely sacrificed a lot in order to do it. So to begin, it has lost a good chunk of its actual survivability, whereas much of its healing abilities have actually been removed from a good chunk of its skills. Like Inner Beast no longer actually recovers your HP anymore. Not only that, but Steel Cyclone also no longer absorbs HP from damage dealt, And I'm pretty sure that many people are sad about that. No longer being able to just survive large pools. That's actually another thing about a certain role that many people are not really going to be fond of when it comes to it when I get to that point. But we're just going to be talking about, like, as far as some of the changes that they've done, like some of the abilities that they remove. Obviously, Skull Sunder, Butcher's Block, and Unchain have been removed. Not really surprising on that because, well, our tank stance no longer, like, negates or just lowers our abilities anymore. So it's like we don't have any reason to use Unchain. So, yeah. Potency increases all around in some of the skills as far as heavy swing and so on and so forth, Storm's Eye, Storm's Path, what have you, as well as many other abilities. But we also have, again, abilities that have been relegated to an earlier level, where it's like Defiance has been moved to level 10, as I was saying before. All tank skills have been moved to level 10 as far as the tank stances. Storm's Paths have actually been unlocked at level 26 from level 38, which is nice. Thrill of Battle is level 30 now, so it's like it's much later into the level. Has actually been switched, I do believe, from Storm's Path, but it now actually adds the Convalescence effect. That's actually where Convalescence is going into now. It's now a part of the actual Warrior's kit, so it's like you now have somewhat an ability that at the same time still adds in the effect where you'll get extra heals. It's just like it's not dependent on your heal, it's dependent on the healer's heal. So yeah, that's one other thing to add on top of that. But one great thing is that Vengeance can well, last for 5 more seconds, so it's like you're able to dish more damage. That's good, right? And it now unlocks at level 38. So it's like that should be good, right? I find that to be a very great change. But another awesome change, this is actually something that has been added to the majority of the tanks, where they now get an extra AoE combo. It is not special to just the Paladin. All the tanks have this. So Mithril Tempest, a new AoE skill at an earlier level, around 40, is a combo that combos off of Overpower and actually extends your Storm Eye. So it's like, hey, I dig that. I dig exactly how they're doing this with the tanks now. They're making them way more versatile with their actual AoE situations, even though some of the AoEs have gotten like nerfs to them in terms of their additional effects. But hey, at the very least, you're dealing with damage, you know? At least you're dealing with damage. One thing that's interesting is the fact that Infuriate now grants a special effect, as well as has 2 charges, so it's like you can use it twice now, making them Fell Cleaves, might I say, pretty extra. A lot of extra Fell Cleaves, I'll just have to say here. And speaking of Fell Cleave now changes into a new ability called Inner Chaos, which can only happen under a new effect called Nascent Chaos, which we'll get into soon enough. But moving along to some of the actual cooldowns, Raw Intuition, it no longer parries, it just reduces damage by 20% for 5 seconds. Now, some may think that's not really all that great, but it's like the cooldown is 25 seconds instead of like some abilities which would be like 30 seconds or 60 seconds. So it's like 25 seconds each time, 20% for 5 seconds. I think I dig that. I'm pretty sure a lot of people dig that. But one thing that they may not dig is the fact that Onslaught is still attached to the beast gauge and is not the same as like a good majority of the other tanks. That is a gap closer that is under a actual cooldown that has a charge and is not a part of their gauge. Is it possible for you to fix that, guys? No? Yes? Maybe so? Okay. Speaking of certain changes under this new effect, Decimate also changes into a chaotic cyclone under the Nascent Chaos. Just know that under this effect, you'll be able to use these two abilities where Inner Chaos is essentially a new weapon skill that is an enhanced Fell Cleave that you'll be able to deal freaking 900 potency on. So it's just like, yeah. Not only that, but it also reduces the Infuriates timer. So 2 thumbs up on that one, guys. At the very least, you got something that's very potent, even more potent than ever. But to add on to that, Nascent Flash, which is actually Warrior's form of intervention, restores HP with each physical hit landing and restores the HP equaling 50% of that recovered by the Nascent Flash, while also reducing damage taken by 10%. So yeah, it has its own effect. At the very least, its own intervention works out for it and identifies it as its way of a unique ability. So we have that. That's definitely a pretty nice addition to the Warriors kit. And as far as that, the main majority of everything else have just been either flat potency increases or just like flat potency changes all over. And as far as my overall thoughts on it, it's actually, though it may not have much of its survivability moves or effects anymore as it had, I do find it to be a form of challenge to be able to figure out ways in order to still survive when you're doing like ridiculous pulls. But I kind of find it hard to believe that we're going to be able to do that with the changes that they've done to pretty much damage values now in dungeons, as well as in certain other instances. But we'll just have to see exactly how that works out. Other than that, I'll try and see once I pick up the job and level it up to 80 and see where that goes. But to continue on, we're now moving on to one of my so favorite jobs, the Dark Knight. Oh man, guys, the Dark Knight has gone through such it's the greatest change ever. Oh man, Dark Knight's all around. Yes, the redemption arc is here, my friends. The freaking Dark Knight Central. Oh my god. So to continue on this, the Dark Knight, I just need to stress this first, but we no longer have dark arts. But one thing that I would like to point out first is the fact that we didn't get my dark aura. That's at least one thing that we didn't get in my actual wish list that I wanted to point out. It's saddening, but it's, I guess it just had to be done, and so on and so forth. Even though they could have done it because they freaking made a new effect for Warrior under Nascent Flash. So it's just like, why in the world couldn't we have gotten at least something of a dark aura? But it's just, I won't really get into it all that much because we actually got something that's at the very least good at level 80 that I'll most certainly be fanboying about. I'm just gonna say because it's just like the feels. I swear, the feels. And so, did I say before that we actually got dark arts removed? Because dark arts is gone. Dark arts as well as dark side have actually been consolidated into a new gauge, which actually focus onto new DPS abilities that we'll be getting into. Like for instance, these two maximum edge abilities known as Flood of Darkness and Edge of Darkness. Oh god, I could just feel that edge. Jesus, I think I cut myself. Guys, do you have a band-aid? But yeah, no, these two abilities are now our new Lion AoE ability that actually replaces Dark Passenger, which, thank god, and it's so much better than freaking Dark Passenger. Holy crap, it's just absolutely amazing, guys. One thing that I love about this is that it looks even more badass in comparison. Like, do you just see how effortlessly that this job is using this ability? Like, it's insane. But not only that, it grants Darkside buffing all damage and its duration for a maximum 60 seconds. So it's like, there's your damage increase. You know? It's going to be very interesting in order to actually play this job. I really can't wait. And then, of course, Edge of Darkness, the single target variant of Flood of Darkness, where it deals a potency of 350, also granting Dark Side as well. So, yes, I really love the change that they made towards this gauge. It's just that I kind of wish that with this gauge, it could have given us our actual freaking Dark Aura, you know? It could have been similar to the fact that when you earn the gauge and activate it is when we could get our Dark Aura. Because, like, I just wanted my Dark Aura, guys. Like, was it really all too hard to put, like, some black freaking ooze that was like, I don't know, some black freaking smoke or something? You were able to freaking put two small little yellow golden dots, lights around freaking warrior, but we can't even freaking get our actual aura that we've been waiting for freaking 6 years. More like 4, but it's just like, it feels like it's been 6 years, but why you do this? I wanted my Dark Aura, guys. I wanted to feel the edge. I wanted to be the edge, guys. I wanted to be the edge. But enough joking around. Going into it, potency increases all around, as I was saying before. Freaking Unleash no longer freaking costs MP, and it's just like we now have an AoE ability that we can actually just spam to our heart's delight whatsoever. It's amazing. But in that even has its freaking follow-up ability, which is called Starwart Soul, a new spell that follows up after Unleash and deals an AoE potency of 160, so it's just like, alright, it's nice. But in addition to that, it restores MP and increases the freaking blood gauge by 20. And speaking of the blood gauge, oh man, they actually changed that a lot with some of the abilities, like how freaking Salted Earth no longer freaking gains the gauge anymore. If I remember correctly, the Blackest Night is actually something that no longer increases the blood gauge, and instead it grants a new form of the dark arts, where it enables you to use either the Flood of Darkness or the Edge of Darkness for free. So that is a nice implementation for the dark arts in the long run. Not only that, but it no longer has the actual separate damage absorption dependent on exactly who you use it on. It now just absorbs 25% regardless of if it's used on you or if it's used on a party member. So it's like the usage on that is OP still to this day. It's just like, what the fuck is this skill? Oh man, I really just can't wrap my head around it. But to add on to that, many of the other changes that they made towards it as far as the gauge is concerned is like Quietus and Blood Spiller are still under the gauge, but you're actually able to use these skills with Delirium, which has actually been reworked and is essentially the Dark Knight's variation of Inner Release. So it's like Dark Knights decided that, hey, I saw that you had an ability that made you use your DPS skills a great number of times. So it's just like, you mind letting me borrow that? I actually, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and take this, and there we go. All right, we're good here. We're just fine. So yes, we're actually able to spam Quietus, execute it multiple times, as well as Blood Spiller with absolutely no cost of the blood gauge, as well as restoring our MP with said weapon skills. Even though the cooldown has been increased, it's still just a ridiculous ability overall. And not only that, Delirium has actually been switched with Blood Spiller, so it unlocks at level 68 instead of level 62. And speaking of which, Blood Spiller actually now does a flatline damage of 550, so it's like, do you not really understand exactly how much damage that this skill is going to deal with just you dealing about 5 of these in a row? Guys, that's insane. And then when it's just like when you have the freaking dark side effect on you, it's just like, what? What is this job? Continuing on, many of the other changes that we haven't really talked about, like for instance, I really didn't even get into the fact that some of the moves that I was talking about before, how why in the world we even removed this, because just like spinning slash is fine, but guys, could we not have kept power slash, please? Like, why did we have to keep freaking Soul Eater and remove power slash? You know what? Is it possible for us to just like switch power slash and Soul Eater instead of removing it? Like, put the effect of Soul Eater on power slash or something, because it's just like, I've never been too into Soul Eater at all, honestly, ever since I first got it. When I first saw Dark Knight and I saw it use freaking power slash, I was like, oh shit, that ability is badass. I could feel the impact of that darkness freaking being exploded in someone's face. But it's just like, I don't know if some of you are aware of the fact that when it gets down to it, Final Fantasy Dissidia has a certain character that is a Dark Knight as well. His name is Cecil. Yes, he is a fellow Dark Knight, and he has an ability that's actually called Soul Eater. And yeah, if I remember correctly, something about it looks pretty familiar to me. I really don't know. I think it's better for me to just show you. So yeah, I don't know whether or not if any of that looks familiar to you in any way, but it's just like something about it looks very, very, very familiar looking in some way, shape, or form. And it's kind of strange how Power Slash came to be known as like Soul Eater, you know? And so I can't help but just wanted to have Power Slash be called Soul Eater instead, and the original Soul Eater in Final Fantasy XIV could just be removed altogether in terms of its animation, and we could just use the animation of Power Slash. You think that'd be possible? Do you think that'd be possible, guys? I really wish that could be possible. But yes, unfortunately, Power Slash has been removed. One of my favorite animations, and it will now be joining along with my Scourge. Why did they have to do this? Why did they have to do this to some of the greatest animations on the Dark Knight? Dark Knight is literally just known as one of the staples of the jobs that have like the most ridiculous and epic animations of all time. But it's just like they have to keep on removing our favorite jobs, animations. Like, why do you do that? Why do you do that? It's sad. Continuing on to some of the other moves that have been removed. Blood Price obviously has been removed, but it's just like it kind of baffles me in a way. But I won't really get into it all too much. I mean, Blood Weapon is a more badass looking animation, so I'm glad that they didn't remove that on top of Power Slash. So it's like, at the very least, they didn't do that, guys, you know. But of course they removed Dark Passenger, which is a good idea. It's great. Thank you for doing it. It has a cool animation, but it's just like it's kind of gotten annoying because it really generally didn't have much use anymore. One thing that did sort of had a use, and I was kind of hoping that it would have been buffed, was Soul Survivor, and I don't really know why in the world that was removed, but I can understand why, because like they're trying to remove all of the self-sufficient abilities where you are able to freaking solo shit. But it's like, that's kind of one of the greatest aspects about Tinks, is the fact that you can go into a dungeon and solo it, because it's like you can't really do that with any of the other jobs, you know. It makes it like a form of challenge. It's fun. It's something that essentially makes it a thrill per se. So I really wish that they did not remove that, because it wasn't just more so about the fact of being able to heal yourself in the instances. It was more so just like the thought or the fun of it all, of being able to take advantage of your kit in solo situations. But I digress. Continuing on to that, a similar change has actually been made to Abyssal Drain, to where we can no longer actually use it like crazy anymore. It's been nerfed all to hell. It's an actual cooldown now, with a cooldown of 60 seconds, with a flatline restoring potency of 200. So it's just like, it's sad, guys. It's just plain sad. I don't know what else to tell you. But do you want to know what else is sad right now? Is the fact that, well, Dark Mind has gotten even more pathetic. Dark Mind now unlocks at level 45 instead of 42, with kind of a slight nerf to its magic vulnerability, where it's 20% instead of 30. And it's like, you couldn't have made it any worse than it already was. So it's just like, you went ahead and just lowered its viability whatsoever. It was already freaking shit, and so you just wanted to make the percentage of it even worse on top of that. So, all right, that's okay. I don't know whether or not if that'll change, but we'll see. I don't really have much thoughts on that. All I can say is that it's just, no, all right. If you want to make that change. It's a stupid change, but I guess if you want to make that change, you can very well make that change. Blood Weapon has gone through quite an actual change, and as well as my voice, holy crap. You have to forgive me, I still have a cold right now. But it has gone through so much change to where it no longer actually freaking reduces your recast time. It no longer reduces the recast time as well as the auto attack delay. So we're no longer known as the fast tank anymore. I'm just gonna point that out right now. We're no longer able to go freaking Speedy Gonzalez. But at the very least, actually I can't even say that, because now that I think about it, it's kind of stupid. But we're not able to actually use Blood Weapon until we get to level 35. It's something that I won't be able to use until level 35. So yeah, that's great. Another thing that's great is just the new abilities that we have, like for instance Starward Soul, which I talked about before, but Flood of Darkness as well as Edge of Darkness actually get updated abilities, where their potency increased to like 300 and 500 respectively, and they're now even more edgy as all get out, because they're called Flood of Shadow and Edge of Shadow. And I think I just cut myself again twice. I think I need to go to the hospital. But not only that, to add on to that fact is the fact that we now have an actual freaking AoE utility that is a part of the Dark Knight now, known as Dark Missionary, and it's our new raid-wide utility. The only thing is that it's still on the reducing magic damage shtick, which I understand why they did that, but it's just like, if you have another tank that's doing generally both of those things, there would not be much there really wouldn't be much point. There really wouldn't. So it's like, there's that. I really don't understand it all too much, but yeah, there's that. And we unlocked that at level 76, if I remember correctly, or was it 78? I did not patch that down into my notes, but it's within some of the 70 skills. I do know that much is for certain. So there's really no need to remind me. I'm gonna know about it in the long run. Just saying. As far as this cooldown is concerned, it's 90 seconds, so it's just like, meh. It's negligible considering how it's a 15% damage reduction, but yeah, still it's magic damage. It's not both, so it is what it is. It's definitely not on the same par as Passive Arms. I'm just gonna point that out right now. And then of course it's coup de grace ability freaking living shadow, where we now rejoice the fact that we freaking release our friend Frey from within us, and he now fights at our side. And I just need a minute, because the fact that we actually freaking summon Frey, and I just like I really can't, like, I want to see what that is going to look like when we actually get to our level 80 role quest, because our job quest, because I feel like I'm gonna cry when it comes down to it. I really do, because like Dark Knight's story is just like full of emotion. But moving on, rejoice, my fellow Dark Knights, as we will now be able to summon our friend Frey, and he will be able to do a actual selection of skills in a rhythm, a certain rhythm, to where he will now do damage along with us, as I was pretty much saying before. I'm repeating myself now, for about 24 seconds. However, in those 24 seconds, I really wish that they fixed that in a way to where it makes sense, because currently the timer kind of starts a little bit too early as Frey is being summoned. I know that that's mostly due to the fact that the certain skills that he's using still fits within the time window. So I guess that's the way on how they thought that was going to be. It already has a pattern of exactly how it uses those skills, where it does a range attack, it does plunge, use quietus, they use freaking edge of darkness or edge of shadow, and then freaking goes into blood spiller, into I do believe it was blood spiller or carve and spit, or was it the other way around? It was most likely the other way around, and essentially ends there. And you pretty much have that for every 2 minutes. I kind of wish that they would make that, I guess 2 minutes is fine, but I'm not 100% sure, because it's like 2 minutes to me still feels pretty long. But I guess for a skill like that, I guess it kind of makes sense, and the amount of damage that you're dealing is kind of ridiculous, considering that you're doing blood spiller at the same time. So there's that. As far as my overall general gist on this job, I just can't wait to freaking play this job. I really can't. That's the one thing that I really just can't wait for, because this job, the changes to it in terms of the dark side and the dark arts in and of itself is just so good. Thank you. I was so tired of the constant dark art spam. You just have, many of the dark arts do have an idea, but it's just like you have no idea just how annoying it was having to do that multiple times. It was so bad. But now we will finally be getting into the new job, that is the freaking Gunbreaker. Oh my god. Let's go ahead and get into the Gunbreaker now, shall we? Oh man. Never before did I ever think that I was actually going to be anticipating such a job. Or just, it's more so like, never did I think I was ever going to be wanting a job before I knew it. Because it's like, I never pictured even seeing the weapon, the gunblade, being implemented into a job in and of itself. And that's one of the things that I love about Final Fantasy XIV, is because when it comes to the originality department, they want to try and do new things that's on a reference to something similar to that of like previous Final Fantasies, like where you have freaking all of the other jobs like Dark Knight and so on and so forth, and then of course there's Samurai. But then when they work into more so the aspect of like a person or just a weapon in and of itself, that's completely different. That's a whole nother can of worms, because it's like there's only so much that you can really pull from it and just go from there. And Gunbreaker looks just so much fun, guys. It looks so much fun, and just absolutely amazing. They've done every single thing that I've wanted for this job, where they gave me pretty much the gist of everything, with Squall's freaking limit breaks, freaking Renzo Kukin, of pretty much it's like its combos in terms of its continuation is essentially Renzo Kukin to me. It literally looks like it. Like, the combination of doing all of that, it's almost as if they implemented Renzo Kukin into the actual, like, combat style of the Gunbreaker, where you are interweaving abilities, weapon skills, as you continue your combo until you get to the last attack. And the explosions are insane. It's just ridiculous. So the way on how the actual Gunbreaker works is the fact that we have our Royal Guard as well as our Powder Gauge, which is something similar to that of like the Warrior Gauge, where when you... Actually, no, I really couldn't say that it's similar to the Warrior Gauge. I only say that because it has a skill that is pretty much similar to that of Infuriate, where we gain 2 cartridges in order to use for our abilities. But I think you could pretty much sum it up as like the ammunition system to that of the Machinist, but it's opening a whole nother can of worms, where when you use it onto said skill, you will be able to continue on with a more potent ability with a brand new animation to it. So it's like, I really love that aspect. It's pretty much similar to that of, yeah, the Machinist, where with the heat gauge, when you go to a certain point, you will be able to use a new variation of that skill, but it's just like, it's more of a weapon skill, and it's more so just using its gauge of its cartridges. So it's kind of similar in a way. It's pretty much working off of that ammunition, but with that heated play style in its own unique way. So to continue on with that, many of the skills, as far as his typical weapon skill combo rotation, Keen Edge into freaking Brutal Shell into freaking, what was it, Solid Barrel, those skills by itself already look good. And Brutal Shell in and of itself is already a skill that's unique to its own, where at a certain point you will be able to restore your own health using this ability with a cure potency of 150. And then not only that, it also creates a barrier which nullifies damage equaling to the HP restored. So it's just like, that in and of itself is already a freaking utility under its belt that's insane. And speaking of utility, freaking one skill that, if I remember correctly, is known as Aurora, a freaking regen, you will be able to put that onto not only yourself but also to another target at the same time. But just like, you'll be able to put that onto a target in order to regen them under a 60-second cooldown, and that's insane of a utility, where its regen potency is like 200 and it's under like 18 seconds. That's crazy. You get that as early as level 45, guys. It's ridiculous. And to even add on to the ridiculousness there, they even have another utility ability known as Heart of Stone, where they literally throw out a form of intervention that is, honestly, I feel kind of better, because the recast time is like 25 seconds. You're really throwing that out there with a reduced damage taken of 15%. Guys, that's crazy. Like, that's crazy. Not only that, but you're also adding onto an additional effect, like when you target a party member while under the effect of Brutal Shell, once you use it, that effect is also granted to the target. So it's just like, the damage nullifying is just like increased on top of that. Oh, guys, it's just stupid. It's absolutely stupid. I feel as though Gunbreaker is going to be in a similar front to that of the Paladin in terms of like utility in some way, shape, or form here, because it's like, some of their utility is kind of crazy. They have actual abilities that are similar to that of the Paladin, but not only that, just abilities that are pulled from a great chunk of the tanks that they pulled from in order to make the Gunbreaker, and I honestly find that to be fine. They still made it unique to its own, to where these abilities can actually be used in its kit efficiently, any way that you know how, once you actually get it into your hands. And I so can't wait to get it into my hands. Like, for instance, it has its own variation of fight or flight, which is no mercy, a freaking 60-second cooldown, which is just fine. I do believe it was pretty much the same with Paladin in the long run, unless it was actually 30 seconds. No, I don't believe it's 30 seconds. It's most likely 60 seconds. And it also increases the damage similarly to the Paladin. However, it's not as great in comparison. It's about maybe 15% lower, but it's still increasing damage. So it's like, it doesn't even matter. As much as you're increasing your damage, it's still fine. The duration is a bit lower by about 5 seconds, if I remember correctly. So it's like, it's kind of a more, how should I say, goodwill version of fight or flight, or something of that nature. It's the alternative version, if you want to go there. And to continue on with borrowed skills, they even decided to freaking give the Gunbreaker freaking dark dance. So, yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. They literally gave dark dance to the Gunbreaker and just camouflaged it. You see what I did there? You see what I did there? No, I'm just kidding. And they added onto it just a bit with it being able to reduce damage by about 10%, which is fine. It's decent enough, but it's still just like it still only just increases parry rate by 50%. Honestly, really, the whole entire parrying at a certain percentage is not really all that great. It's not really great in comparison to that of blocking, and you're not really going to be seeing the Gunbreaker like block attacks, but it is what it is. I just find that maybe if they were to have brought the actual recast timer to maybe 60 seconds or something, then it would probably be a good ability in the long run for what we actually got here. We never really know. It might change, it might not. And then of course it has its own actual AoE skills with Demon Slice, and then freaking Demon Slaughter that he gets at level 40. Just the same as everyone else. But not only that, it also adds a cartridge to the power gauge. So it's like you can add on top of the actual skill of the AoE abilities that you get later on. Because, trust me, I'm so freaking excited about the fact that I'll be able to use Beta Circle. Beta Circle is in this game. I can't wait to freaking use Fated Circle. Oh my god. Speaking of skills I can't wait to freaking use, oh my god, Rough Divide that you earn is literally our gap closer, which I asked for, and I'm thankful for that. We'll be able to use it 2 times with a maximum charge of freaking 2, and it's just like, not only that, you got freaking Blasting Zone. Which is the ultimate ability, and I knew it would have been the ultimate ability of all time. You actually get a lower variant of that, which is known as Danger Zone, at a very early level, mind you. I'm actually pretty baffled about that, to be honest, because this thing already does enough damage by itself, with freaking Danger Zone being 350 at an early level of 18. And a cooldown of 30 seconds? That's too much! Though I think the animation is probably going to be a little bit different. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe not. It's still pretty much the same thing under Blasting Zone. Blasting Zone itself, however, now that skill right there. Freaking 30 seconds of a cooldown with an actual potency of 700. Carve and Spit, oh my god, you're not even competition, I'm sorry. Sure enough, for freaking Blasting Zone, it's literally a level 80 skill, so it makes sense. But it's just like, come on, the first ultimate ability for it, and it's already freaking OP as all get out, is ridiculous in terms of damage, come on. Oh man. And then talking about its actual general ability, as I was talking about before, where it's able to weave abilities by a new form of gameplay tactic here, similar to that of like Machinist in a way, but it's not proc based. You literally just activate it whenever you have the actual cartridge ready, and just do it from right there. Where continuation is used to continue and follow up from said ability, where you have the Gnashing Fang, Savage Claw, and Wicked Talon unlocked at level 60. And once you get to level 70, you'll be able to continue that combo after you use certain skills. Like for instance, Gnashing Fang will have a follow-up to that of Jugular Rip, Savage Claw being a follow-up, being followed up by Atom Tear, and Wicked Talon being followed up by Eye Gorge. And speaking of freaking all of these skills, the damage on these are freaking ridiculous in terms of combos, because Gnashing Fang is already freaking 400, and then on top of that you have freaking 500 for freaking Savage Claw, and then on top of that 650 for fucking Wicked Talon. Now, some people have been telling me that in terms of damage, the Gunbreaker is actually the lowest right now. And I'm just going to point out that I don't even give two shits about that, because all I'm really going to care about is the fact that I'm doing fucking Renzo Kukin and all of these other skills and enjoying the ever-living hell out of the job and myself. And I'm just going to be lost in the fact that I'm using a Gunblade and literally squalling it up out there in Eorzea. I'm just going to point that out right now. Yep.